Today we're doing this Daewoo Matiz. We've got to do a clutch change, yeah? So first of all you're going to want to slacken off your wheel nuts, then jack the car up. If you're on your own, then potentially you're going to want to, before jacking the car up, you're going to want to see if you can get access to undo the drive shaft nut. Jack the car up, remove the wheel, remove the drive shaft nut. Obviously when jacking the car you need jacks, axle stands under it so that it's not collapsing on you. Remove the wheel, remove the bottom ball joint bolt, and then essentially if you do that on both sides you'll then be able to pop the ball joint out. Obviously they can be a little tricky. You can use a little screwdriver to open that gap up ever so slightly, if I can find it here where my finger is. Once you've done that on both sides, you move to the engine bay, disconnect any electrical connections. On this particular car there's only a handful, so I've got a couple of connectors we've undone. We've removed the airbox and pipe work to make things easier. I haven't removed any of the water pumps because that's extra work. However, there are a couple of bolts on the side of the gearbox that hold a bracket to the water pipe work, so I've undone them. Then work your way around the gearbox, the engine, removing the 14mm nuts, bolts rather, that go in all the way around it. On this particular car there only appeared to be one starter motor bolt. I could be wrong because one of them may well have been actually on the other side when I undid around the gearbox. There's a earth strap that you need to undo. Your gear linkage will unbolt from the edge of the gearbox as well, and there's a couple of little split pins in the top of the linkage. Take the split pin out and then the rings with grommets will just pop out off the top. These two pieces will go back. They bolt to the engine and gearbox, and then they go on to your selector rods for the actual gearbox. You will need to remove the clutch cable from the underside of the gearbox, and that's pretty much all that's been needed. Once all your bolts around the gearbox are done, I then come to the underside, and unfortunately for accessing getting the gearbox actually out, I've just undone this front anti-roll bar bracket, 2 bolts here, took the large nut off at the back, and that gave me access to pull this down, which gave us enough room to get the gearbox out and onto the floor. Then with a little bit of manoeuvring and rotating of the gearbox, you're able to take the gearbox out from under the car. We lost drive, which is why we're doing this. Did wonder if it was the gearbox itself, but on opening it up you can clearly see that the clutch is completely obliterated. And if I come over to the clutch itself, you take this off, it's like the pressure plate, but this is the worn out clutch, the worst one I've ever seen. Down to the rivets, and the owner tells me he didn't know it was slipping. I've never seen that before, not that bad. Generally you get slip before they disintegrate like that. There was a massive pile of fibres and stuff that fell out, and as you can see them all in there. Obviously a new clutch will come with this piece and that piece. In some cases you'll need a new flywheel as well, because that's what it presses it against in order to give you the traction. Obviously, for anyone that doesn't know, this bit would go in the gearbox on that spline like so. Obviously when they're connected the whole lot turns. When you press your clutch in, it releases the centre plate, which is on a spline, which means the outer piece, take that out, this outer piece will turn separately from the final drive shaft. Obviously that works by being on there so that when this clutch plate is clamped by the clutch. This is clutch. When that's clamped, i.e. you're not pressing your clutch pedal, it will grip this and causes it to turn your gearbox, which in turn moves your drive shafts around. As you can see that. When your clutch wears, this can't grip this plate and therefore you get no motion, no movement. And that's that. Obviously we're going to get a new clutch. Looks like 40 quid from Euro car part. And then we will reassemble in the same order we took it apart. And that'll be clutch fixed. In reality it's taken us about, with a bit of fag breaks and tea breaks and school runs, it's taken us about 3 hours.